Good afternoon, everyone. Just about all events that are organized by the City and County of Denver. This is a bilingual event. And those of you who want to take advantage of the interpretation that is being offered simultaneously today, please, in a minute, you will be able to see the globe in the bottom right of your screen. And you click on it and select the language of your choice. Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos. Como casi todos los eventos organizados por la ciudad y condado de Denver, la ciudad ofrece interpretación simultánea para poder aprovechar el servicio que se está ofreciendo. Pueden seleccionar el globito que va a aparecer en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y una vez que pulsen el globito podrán seleccionar el idioma de su preferencia. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Chris. So the interpretation channel can be activated again.
Okay.
I am in the main channel, just so that you know. And this is Nora.
Thanks, okay,
Nora.
I'm moving you back to the interpreter.
For those of you on the call, the interpretation globe should be at the bottom of your screen. And if you're listening in English, I'd encourage you to join the English channel so that there's two-way communication if there's Spanish and English conversation back and forth. All right, I think we're ready to get going.
Ready to kick off? All right.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris and team, for getting that set up to start here. With that,
So Nanita, you'll remove the recording.
we'll wait for confirmation that we moved that before starting.
Yes, we are. We can.
Good to go?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks all for that. And thank you. Still not?
No. Let me see. Give me one.
Quick reminder for advisory board members here, please update your names to note full name and what district or mayoral appointee you might be representing.
Oh, the interpretation channel looks like ended.
No, I just started. I moved.
So now you'll, Ninita, you'll only move over the interpreter Nora Medina and Francisco Picado to the interpretation channel. You won't put the Spanish recording. Thanks, folks, for your patience while we're kind of configuring this new setup.
Okay, I think now we're ready to go.
We can give one more try here.
No?
It's good saying no.
Oh, okay.
I think what I'll do, just in the
Creo que lo
interest of...
que vamos a hacer... Oops.
Oh, see, it takes time, I think. You just... No?
Let's see. No.
But it came back on.
Okay, give me 1 second.
while we're waiting, Alan, I'm not sure I got a copy of the minutes. So you could send them to me.
Are you guys? I can't hear them.
So it looks like the Spanish interpretation channel has started, but you put all 3 accounts into this interpretation channel, and you're going to want to remove the Spanish recording account.
It's removing, it's not here.
Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'll record the Spanish interpretation from my account, Francisco, just so that we can get started.
Okay.
Uh,
No, why are you still here?
I think we're good to go
Okay.
as is. Yep.
Think so?
Yes, and I will get that recorded for the Spanish version.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So, Jonathan.
Yeah. So we think we're ready to kick off now?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for the team setting this up. I know it's not easy, but I think it'll be a large benefit to many members of our community who can't access these meetings otherwise. So I appreciate all you're putting into this. With that, I'll go ahead and kick off the October 10th edition of the DOTI Advisory Board meeting. As is typical, we'll kick off with a welcome, roll call, and a review of the meeting minutes. We'll have a public comments section, a report from DOTI leadership, and then our 2 special topics of the day are an update on staff administration at DOTI. In particular, talking with some members of our DOTI talent acquisition and service team about staffing efforts in the department, where we've struggled, where we're succeeding, what we've learned about our employee base, et cetera, as well as another budget update. This budget update, as the budget has now been released and is under discussion by council and the mayor right now, this time will be split into 2 portions. One is that the first portion is an opportunity for us, members of the committee, to ask clarifying questions of Earl, Nick, and others who were involved in the budget creation about what some of those lines in the budget might have meant, or clarifications on how things looked. We'll preview for any watching that Nick, Earl, and others will not be able to comment on the budget in the sense of what's right or what's wrong with it. It is now in the mayor's hands. It is in council's hands. It is not in their purview to alter the budget at this time. The second half of that budget update will be us discussing a letter drafted by the Budget and Finance Committee and ideally voting on whether to send it today. We'll, as is typical, round up with our action items list, odds and ends, and adjourn by 6 p.m. today. Do want to preview for all on the line here that although I'm leading today's meeting, I'll be handing the reins over to Jake in about 50 minutes or so, as I need to go so switch to audio so I can pick up my daughter from daycare for the rest. He can't be driving the train at that point. So with that, welcome again, everyone. Thinking we'd be ready for roll call next. Alan, if you have your sheet ready, good to go?
Yeah.
All right, I'll pass over to you.
In our copious amounts of spare time here, I've been looking to see who's here. So I'll just quickly go through and see who I didn't see.
Okay.
Alicia Brown. Alicia, are you here? No. Ian Chowdhury, are you here? Great. And I'm seeing everyone else is present. So that meets quorum for today. So we can get rolling. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, great attendance today. Next up, I know, Joe, you just received these meeting minutes, but typically what we'd be doing next here is I'd ask the group here for a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes and also be looking for a second if we're ready for that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving last month's meeting minutes, say aye or raise hands.
Aye.
Okay, and I'll give a moment to lower hands for anyone who used the Zoom version of hand raising before we ask for nays. Looks like Tinsley and Gary still have hands up. All right, thank you. And are there any no's for approval of the meeting minutes from last month? Doesn't look like it. All right. Thank you again, Alan, for those meeting minutes, and thank you to the team who translated those into Spanish. That was a first for this group, which I'm really excited about.
That would be Google Translate would be the team.
Oh, that was Google Translate. I thought that was the team here that did that. Oh, all right. Oh, all right. Okay, so that's some clarification on the content there. Thank you for that. Nanita, do we have anyone for public comment today?
Yes, we have one, Emily Jacobs. Emily, let me know if you joined the panelist.
I don't think I've seen
Did
that.
that
There
work?
she is. Yes.
Hi, I'm Emily. You can hear me?
Can hear you just fine. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yes, my name's Emily Jacobs, and I am, I live in District 1. I have lived on this street, on Irving Street, for just over 14 years. I live with my husband and my 2 daughters that attend Skinner Middle School and walk down the street. In the past, I've done a little bit of work as a wellness coordinator with Westminster Public Schools and Adams 14. And so I know a little bit about Safe Routes to School grants from years prior, nothing really in that work now, but I know it's great, important work. And really, I just wanted to be here to speak about most specifically to the area on Irving Street between I'm in the Harkness Heights neighborhood, and looking at 41st and Irving as the pretty big, the Irving neighborhood bikeway as well. And I know that you all are aware that there was someone hit this summer, that Dana, I believe was her name, and she got hurt pretty bad at that intersection. And it's hard to, as a neighborhood, we've done a lot of work with trimming up trees and talking as a neighborhood how we can help. And it's nerve-wracking as a parent who watches their children go to that intersection every day, 2 times a day, all the neighborhood kids. And it's really just seeing an increase in near crashes just daily. I work from home. I'm home. I look outside all the time and see near crashes. They come home. The kids talk about it. Oh, so-and-so almost got hit. Oh, this person slammed on his brakes. Oh, I mean, it's hard to hear it because it's just becoming so frequent as the neighborhood grows, unfortunately, with faster and more drivers. I also noticed what we really noticed is my daughter walked last year and this year, and the schools, as you know, changed to a later start time. And so, used to be walking at 7 in the morning versus walking at 8 in the morning is quite a difference with an increase in traffic. My daughter noticed that day one. She just said, oh, last year it used to be so quiet walking in the mornings. Now you open the door and it's slamming cars, rushing, honking, trying to get to their morning commute. And I think just more and more people are using Irving. I see the same cars speeding through, passing people, honking. I'm sure they're late for work. You see them, just as Irving gets used more as a I'm not sure the correct terminology, thoroughfare. But I just don't think there's enough signage as well. I don't know what the, best solution is, but we're just trying to urge some attention. As a neighborhood, we formed a little task force and we got over 100 signatures already just in the past couple weeks with a petition just to have to try to meet with Amanda Sandoval again. I think as a neighborhood, we already met with her and didn't feel like there was any next step. So we're trying to kind of pursue that and see what we can do. And also working with Skinner Middle School. Those school leaders are on board as well. If you look at the signage around there, there's only one school zone sign and not going the other direction. There's not a lot of flashing lights, anything like that. And so I think I'm hoping that some easy steps can be made that can help improve safety in the meantime. But then I, of course, urge you to look at lasting measures that will help improve mobility for the long haul. And just thank you for you guys, and thanks for being here and hearing me. And thanks for all you do on this board. for us.
Really appreciate you sharing your time here with us, Emily. These stories are really crucial for understanding the local situation. We talk about safe routes to school a lot. We talk about how it's hard, but without having a kid yourself or being at these schools, it's hard to understand where things are going right and where they're going wrong. Really appreciate you giving the time as well to work with your community to look for some solutions. And we'll definitely take note of this and see what we can figure out here. And Anita, I think you said that was the only public speaker today.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And next up then is our report from DOTI leadership. Nick, I think I saw you on the line. Is that you today?
That is me, Mr. Chair. Yep. Dive in here. Good afternoon, everyone. I think same crowd, but Nick Williams, Deputy Manager here. Few different announcements. First off, Executive Director, not an announcement there, still Adam. At this point, you are likely seeing that cabinet officials those appointments have begun. I believe the airport and Denver Human Services both have nominees. And just a reminder for the cabinet positions, not all appointees, but cabinet positions do need to go through city council approval once those nominations are made. So keep your eyes peeled. I know I certainly am on that for any news on the executive director on there. But right now, no timelines on there, but still ably led by Mr. Phipps. Budget, not going to go into too much on this since we have time here on our agenda, but just a reminder on kind of existing timeline, what's going on now. Saw early this week, City Council has sent a list of requested amendments to the mayor. Pretty big list at this point. I think totals something around $80 million on there. And so what's occurring right now this week is the mayor is reviewing those. He then will on Monday on the 16th send a amended budget or not amended, depending on his prerogative, certainly, back to City Council. That means hearings will begin on the following Monday after the 16th. You can tell I wrote down the wrong date there. The following Monday, and then so that'll be a hearing, and then the following two meetings on the 30th and the 6th, that will be kind of where it is an action item, and that's where you would see potential amendments to that budget. So that's all I'll say. We have time on our budget later to go more in depth on that. A couple announcements. This group will receive an invite to a kind of a ribbon cutting event for a recent project, I think that is getting very close, if not completed. These are pedestrian improvements from the Auraria campus across to Larimer Street on there. Very exciting project on there, and very excited to have the ribbon cutting for that. Also, tomorrow, likely you'll see an announcement about kickoff of some Federal Boulevard pedestrian enhancements. This will be from 23rd to 27th, and it will include a hawk signal, so kind of the flashing signals for pedestrians, as well as some kind of chicane put into the street to really kind of start to slow down traffic on there. So look for that in the news tomorrow. And then kind of the two competing urgent issues facing the city. First up, the House 1000 initiative, of course. This mayor on his second day declared a state of emergency around unhoused residents here in Denver, and the city ever since then, mid-July, has been working diligently on making sure that we can house 1,000 unsheltered folks by the end of the year. Had a bit of a success late last month, where did the first move out of folks from an encampment to shelter and housing on that. I think it was around 80 folks, and between that and some other ones that we've moved up to 168. And I will, during this meeting, I'll put in the city's created a dashboard that allows you to track those the progress around the House 1000 initiative. So exciting news still. Certainly a lot of work to do on that, but I think everyone remains very optimistic and hopeful on that initiative. And then the second one is migrant response. And this is something that's been going on since, quite a bit earlier in this year. I think it was late spring or early summer when this began. We started to see an increase in the number of folks, many from South America, very many from Venezuela, making their way up to the United States, and then many of them coming to Denver, either kind of passing through or as a destination on there. We're up to, and it certainly has in the last month, increased markedly, and that you see that reflected in the news, but up to about 350 to 400 a day currently on there. And so work is continuing to make sure that we can provide transport, we can provide some shelter on a short-term basis for those folks while they go through the migration process, whether that's asylum or another part of migration on there. I think those were the big items, and I know we got a hefty agenda, so I'll stop there, but certainly happy to answer any questions. Jonathan, we're going to pretend like we didn't see that. So
any questions from the team here?
Nick, what's the date of the Larimer Bridge?
Let me see. So that will, and I think Nancy Kuhn, our public information officer, has sent these invites out. Let me see. November 1st.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah, you'll receive an invite from Nancy.
Tinsley, you're up.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Hi guys. So my only question is, and actually it's probably a concern of everyone, also on the west side. I noticed your guys' map in the budget report that you had given to council, and I'm just concerned that there's so much blue, and I'm just wanting to have a transparent conversation with you guys about what is the plan for that. Like, there's so much underserved communities for DOTI right now, and I know we can only do so much with the budget that we have, so I'm not saying that, but like, is there any plan to stretch any of the funds to kind of make those areas a little less blue? Does that make sense?
Can you clarify what you mean by blue?
Yes, the underserved communities that you guys had put on the budget map. Yes.
So yeah, that map is one of the tools that we use to certainly identify and then concentrate investments there. That is kind of the main strategy. I know we've had a discussion about our equity approach and how we do equitable investments on there, and I think that's probably certainly something we could come back and talk more on there. But really, it is that expectation that we are investing in those areas that have been historically underinvested, and really that's what that map shows. That really kind of is our allows us to take a real data-driven approach in doing that. So I know that was a very high-level answer. If there's specific things, feel free to reach out on there, and certainly would be happy if we wanted to have another equity, defer to the committee, of course. But if we want to have kind of more in-depth on how we approach those equitable investments, would be happy to help.
I would love to talk with you guys about that. I will email out later tonight. Thank you.
Nick, question for me. This is skipping ahead a little bit to the budget topic, but just thought you might be aware of this. You were talking about, I'm bringing it up because you just talked about the migrant crisis here, and how that has been enduring, and obviously has taken a lot of staff and resource time from this department and others. As we look at the 2024 budget, is there a particular department or division that most of that expected continued cost and funding is couched under? Would we find it in the DOTI segment, or is it all sort of housed in one location?
You won't find it specifically in the DOTI segment, and I'm getting out over my skis on this. I'd say kind of our human service department, so Denver Human Services Department of Public Health and the Environment. I know they have been kind of the main groups that are managing this. We help, just like we help with the House 1000 on trying to coordinate transportation, things as simple as soliciting volunteers that have the right CDL designations that would allow them to drive buses to and from hotels or wherever folks are needing to go on there. So it's unlikely you would see that specifically in those budgets, and especially since this is kind of a emerging issue. Granted, it's been a few months on here, but in budget time, this is an emerging issue. And I think this is likely where you will see, if you guys are ballot initiative aficionados, you remember a couple of years gave some additional latitude to city council to do budget changes and budget amendments throughout the year. And, you know, just my guess is that will be a tool that, depending on the direction the migrant issue goes, you know, it goes up and it goes down. You know, it kind of really spiked early in the summer. And then, you know, I think for a number of reasons subsided. And then it was just in the last month or so that it has really started to peak again. And so long rambling answer to wrap it up is I think it is not going to be reflected, or I don't think it'll be clearly reflected in the 2024 budget, but I do think it will result in some budget, potentially some budget actions throughout the year, depending on how things go.
Got it. Thanks. And I was asking in part because I hadn't seen anything referencing that in the DOTI segment, and I was just wondering if I'd missed something obvious there. But this makes sense.
No, I mean, it would be wrapped into personnel costs or things like that. But yeah, like not specifically.
Okay. Thank you. And that looks like all the questions for Nick. So thanks for the updates, Nick. We are now going to move on to our update on staff administration topic. We're starting this about 10 minutes late, but I do want to make sure we have a full 45 for this, should we have sufficient questions for that. So we'll probably prune time from a later part of the agenda as relevant. To introduce the topic here, our team has had, we've talked a lot over the last year or two about staffing difficulties in the department, heading into COVID, through COVID, after COVID, but we've never taken a moment as a group to step back and ask questions or understand the scale of the department's staffing difficulties or any specifics about it, key drivers of staff churn, which divisions of the department might be struggling with staffing more than others, how this impacts operations. Well, I should say we hear a lot about how it impacts operations, but we haven't had a chance to dive into some specifics. So the team from Talent Acquisition and Service was kind enough to join us today to talk about a number of those things. What I don't know is who I should be passing off to kick off here.
Will Meyer kick us off.
Cut out the middleman. It's all yours, Jack.
Yeah. Will Meyer from our talent acquisition team is going to kick us off. Thanks, Will.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. And thanks for having us, inviting us to join this session. So Will Meyer, I'm our talent acquisition manager, help oversee the team that does directly support DOTI in terms of recruitment, and can kick us off before. So we'll go through recruiting, some updates there. We'll talk a little bit about diversity and then pass it over to our Human Resources Service team to talk more about retention and some of the efforts that they're putting in with our current staff. So I will wait for SB to share our deck here.
Nanita, I apologize. I'm trying to share my screen, but it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I'm not actually able to.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Thanks, SB.
I just saw your name here.
While we were waiting, I can give context all day. So why don't I introduce myself a little bit further and burn some time here. So one of the areas as
you can share now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, as Jonathan was talking, was a focus on recruitment, specifically some of the areas of focus. So we are going to dive into some of what we've done this year and some of the plans around some of the positions we need to continue to focus on going into 2024. My partner, Zach, and I are going to be talking a little bit further about that. But to kind of talk about the highlight issues, this is DOTI specific. Our position strength as of today is 86.3%. How we communicate that through our team and the rest of the city is in terms of vacancy rate. So sitting at about a 13.7% vacancy rate of all of our unlimited, limited, and all on-call positions in DOTI. So total positions, again, a little bit of breakdown of what goes into that, about 1504. Total filled positions as of today is 1298. And then that means that there are 206 vacant positions across the organization. Some of those are active right now. Some of those are in progress of being onboarded. I believe we right now have about 20 or so people who are offers accepted, readying to start. So there's always this turnover, and obviously that vacant positions number changes weekly as people resign, retire, leave their positions for a variety of reasons. And so our team has the joy of continuing to keep that number as low as possible. So what we've done this year is a few things. One is a big focus on solid waste collection. So total hires in 2023 so far is 44. One of the big successes we had about middle summer this year is we completely filled all of the vacancies for solid waste collection. As of today, we've seen a little bit of turnover, but sitting at about 13.7% of all of the roles within solid waste vacant. One of the things that we did was a big push in terms of job description clarification. We've actually moved the series itself up in terms of pay. So kind of really attacking it from multiple angles and making sure that we're writing and communicating the job to be realistic. And then lastly, in terms of a marketing push, getting that out there to the public, making sure that solid waste collection was going to CDL drivers who, really didn't have to be on the road all day, didn't have to be away from home, and could more specifically be working here in the city and county of Denver, be home with family. And we've seen some success from that. Tinsley, I do see your question. I will get to you in 2 seconds. The other focus has been on engineers. So I'll have Zach talk about that in a future slide here, or in our next slide here, in terms of hiring for engineers has just been difficult. We're facing some of the similar things. We need very skilled engineers here in the city. We don't necessarily pay the best, but we're making some progress there that Zach will talk about. And so we want to continue being able to hire for that. But so far this year, having hired 24 individuals. And then lastly, we've had a big focus on EDI here across the city. That is in all parts of HR, all parts of DOTI. We as a talent acquisition team have had consistent representation on the DOTI EDI collective to really hear from our employee base on ways that we can better represent our positions, get in front of individuals within our communities, and staff our agency as best as possible. I will pause there. Tinsley, I do see your hand up, so I will allow you to ask a question.
Tinsley, are you just working to get off mute, or did you not have a question? That might
Sorry,
be
I'm coming.
Oh, no, yeah,
I was driving. I'm sorry. And actually I had put my question in the chat, but my question is, and I know that it's not within the capacity of some of the advisory board members here, but I would love to talk more and discuss more offline about doing some career fairs, some workshops, some career workshops here in GVR. I think there's some people that are really wanting to get into these kinds of careers, but just don't know where to go or what to do in our area. So please reach out. I did put my email in the chat. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Tinsley. Appreciate that. Brings me to my last point before going to Zach here. If you can go back one slide real quick, and I will really hurry up and get through it. We've gone through a lot of transition as a recruiting team. So we've added leadership. I'm new to the city as of February. Zach is new in a supervisory position. He'll be speaking next, overseeing the team. And then we've brought in a lot of new recruiting team members who, bring obviously experience from other areas, one specifically in terms of engineer recruiting, but really kind of refocusing the team, making sure that they understand and are bringing capabilities to our talent acquisition team that we never had before. And then lastly, implementing new ways of working with our hiring managers, ensuring that, again, we are focused on the skill set that we need by position. And lastly, again, getting in the community. So would love to take you up on that, Tinsley. We've done a rebrand as a city in terms of our careers. We will use that rebrand and be in the communities more. And yeah, look forward to a very successful 2024. Zach, I'll pass to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Zach Ortner. I am a recruiting supervisor here with the city.
And so I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the challenges that we've been facing just in the past few years, but specifically in 2023, and that's hiring and retaining engineers to our workforce. And it's not just a citywide thing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics mentions that architecture and engineering positions are projected to grow faster than the average for all occupations between 2022 and 2032, and at a rate of about 188,000 openings projected each year on average. So there's a lot of competition for great engineers, and not a lot of supply in the market. So really what we've noticed, especially on the DOTI team, is that we have compensation as one of the key limitations in attracting and retaining talent in our engineering roles. And so right now in DOTI, we're currently at a 12% vacancy rate within our engineering roles, which is not overly concerning, but we want to get that down. And what we're doing, one of the things that we've done is we've met with DOTI leadership and our classification and compensation team to take a look at the pay for our engineers. And we've made a proposal to increase the pay grades for all of our engineering roles in the engineering job series. So anything from entry level all the way up to our senior and supervisor level. And the change would just be to move those pay grades up by 1 or 2 pay grades. So in this chart, you can see what that current pay grade looks like in the current midpoint, and then the proposed pay grade that we submitted. And this has already gone to City Council for approval, and they've approved it. And then next up in the timeline is it goes to Mayor Council today. Then the first reading is on 10/16. The second reading is on 10/23. And then if everything goes well there, we should get mayoral approval by 10/27. And then if that's good, we secure that approval, then our class and compensation team will update our HRIS system to make those increases for our current employees. And then we will be able to advertise that new pay range for any candidates or external employees that we hope to attract to the city, and that would be by 10/30. So one of the things that we've done for our engineering job series to hopefully help us retain and attract people into those roles. Next slide for me. And do we have a question? Okay, we'll stop.
Kinsley, I think your hand's still up.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. So I also wanted to share some of our diversity hiring data within DOTI for 2023 year to date. So one of the things that Will mentioned that we're focusing on is equity, diversity, and inclusion within DOTI. And that covers everything from where we source our candidates to hiring to all of the initiatives that we have for our employees. And our service team will speak a little bit more about that later. But this slide right here shows the diversity hiring data for 2023 agency-wide. So this is for all positions. Overall, the ethnic diversity makeup for our hires in 2023 closely mirrors the demographics for Denver. However, when you're looking at the gender diversity, there's a pretty large gap. But this isn't really surprising to us based on the types of jobs that we typically hire for in the trades sector. It's typically more male dominated, but we do realize that there is an opportunity to improve on closing that gap. And that's one of the focuses going into 2024. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. All right. And so this slide, this is a little bit different and a little bit more concerning because this is our 2023 hires into supervisor level positions or above. And it becomes it becomes a lot less diverse. So this is where we want to continue focusing on closing the gap as a talent acquisition team and an HR team. And some of the things that we've already done and then hope to do in 2024 and moving forward is really reviewing and, if appropriate, removing or revising any barriers to employment. So these could be such things as experience requirements, education requirements. So really working with our DOTI leaders as a talent acquisition team to see if those requirements are necessary or if they're actually barriers to hiring diverse and great talent into these roles. So one of the examples is this year we removed the certification requirement for our staff level engineers. So those entry level engineers, they required an engineering training certification at the time of application, but we were able to make a case to allow them to receive that within 6 months. So by the time they pass probation. And that has really helped us open up our entry level staff engineer talent pool to a more diverse pool. And the goal is to attract that diverse talent up front and then grow them by investing in them, training, development opportunities, and hopefully retain them and develop their career within the city. Another thing is we've been focusing on interview and selection training for our hiring managers, as well as unconscious bias training, just to make sure that everyone who is serving on interview panels or making hiring decisions is thoroughly informed on how to make unbiased, proper, appropriate hiring decisions. We're also expanding our candidate sourcing and outreach by partnering with community and diversity organizations. So Tinsley, another great opportunity, would love to connect with you to figure out how we can partner with you in that neighborhood to reach talent there. And then lastly, developing our internal talent for future promotion. So as you saw on the previous slide, there's a lot of diversity at the individual contributor level. So we're looking at opportunities to really tap into that talent, develop and grow them into future leadership positions to where we can have a more diverse leadership team within DOTI. And then our service team will talk more on that later. So I will pass that on unless we have questions for me. All right, thank you. I think Esperanza, you're up next.
Yeah, it's actually me. Hi. Yes, hi, I'm Gabrielle Bankers. I'm Organization Development and Effectiveness. I go by GB and I basically help individuals, businesses and teams grow. And I'm very excited to be here, honored to be here. Thank you for the invite and engaging with us around these topics. We have been focusing for years on retention and with an accelerated or a higher sense of urgency since the last 3 or 4 years. And I want to dive into the drivers of retention that we observe and monitor, and also how we drive strategies in the retention arena. One thing I want to preface this whole thing with, DOTI has 4 strategic focus areas, as you know, and one of them is invest in our people. And from our viewpoint, from our perspective, we can definitely assert that DOTI leadership really means this. And DOTI leadership has engaged strongly in the investment in our people, not just throwing money at training or something like that, but also and moreover, and more importantly, leadership visibility, one-on-one dialogue, coaching, performance management, town halls, skip level meetings, and so forth. So investing time, because that's one of the biggest drivers of retention. And I just want to highlight that we, from our vantage point, really feel that DOTI leadership is doing tremendous work there. As we all know, people leave people first before they leave any structure. In that context, though, we have seen an uptick of leaving because of compensation, as Zach and Will already mentioned. And so we have here on this slide the main drivers of retention. And what we do is we really monitor all the data that we can possibly get our hands on. Data that is valuable to us in identifying trends, gaps, needs, and so forth. In that sense, I'm going to hand over to Esperanza here because she's going to give us a few examples of how we work with the data, and then I'm going to come back and speak to some successes and challenges.
Hi, I'm Esperanza. I support DOTI service team, the HRBP partners, and I also pull a lot of the data for DOTI. One of the biggest data points that we have been focused on this year, of course, is turnover. We do provide a monthly report to DOTI leadership that does break down turnover by division as well as turnover overall for DOTI. So as you can see here, we do have DOTI turnover versus the City and County of Denver for 2022 versus 2023 year to date. Last year, we finished at 21%, and City and County of Denver overall finished at 17.4%. Currently, DOTI is at 15.25% for turnover, where the city overall is at 11.3%. As Will, Zach, and Gabrielle have all mentioned, we have many different things driving turnover. We are on the higher end because of a competitive and tight labor market, especially with those higher turnover job profiles, many of which we do have within DOTI. And then we do show turnover by year, 2021, 2022, and 2023 year to date, just for comparison. And then in our next slide here, we do go over our exit survey results. We are currently using a third-party vendor called People Element. For our survey results, we do have a 60% response rate, which is a drastic improvement compared to when we were using Workday, where it was only 17%. So we are getting better results for reasons for terminations and the reasons why people are leaving. So as you can see here, we have the top 5 reasons for termination, the top being resignation. And then also our top 5 reasons for leaving, and the top reason is compensation currently. In years prior, the top reason was growth and development, but as you can see, that's kind of fallen down on the list where compensation is a key driver. Does anybody have any questions so far?
I think one, perhaps clarifying here, and we're drawing things together. I see we have compensation in the last year listed as our top driver. I know we also talked a little bit earlier about having done a study for engineering roles specifically, with the suggestion to increase pay tables and midpoints to match market conditions. Was this a driver of that study, or was that study already in progress? And what, I guess I'm wondering, was it maybe we saw a lot of engineers specifically were saying it was compensation, so it led to a kickoff of a study, or did they just happen to be running in parallel?
I believe it was a driver for the study to retain and also attract. And we do touch on it a little later. We do go in a little more in depth of what pay practices we are using for turnover and to retain as well.
Yeah, I have, this is Julie Riskin. I have a question. If I saw it correctly, the turnover got reduced a lot in 23. Is that because we're only halfway through or not fully through the year, or did something get better?
So this is year to date. So we're at 15%, where these other numbers here are end of year.
Okay. And do people have to live in Denver to work here?
No.
Okay. Because I'm just also wondering about the cost of housing and how much that affects the need for compensation.
Yes, you don't need to live in the City and County of Denver to work for the City and County of Denver.
Yeah, and we do think that the cost of living, the inflationary pressures have put pressure on employees and made compensation a more important factor, right? Their rent's going up, their milk's going up, their childcare's going up, and they're thinking about how do they make ends meet. And so, we recognize that those factors are driving a need to address compensation maybe a little bit more rapidly or more aggressively. And I think, we know that people are leaving because of compensation, so that does drive the pay studies. But we're not just looking at engineers, and we have a future slide. We've looked at a lot of different classifications and pay groups this year, from frontline solid waste collectors up through, senior engineers. So constantly looking at pay, constantly feel like we're trying to play catch up when it comes to keeping compensation competitive with the market.
Thank you.
We'll skip ahead here. So this slide does address our first year turnover. So year to date, we have had 110 employees leave within their first year of employment, which has an estimated cost of $4.2 million. One thing we have done within DOTI is we conducted focus groups within our high turnover job profiles that consisted of 40 different employees from 17 different high turnover job profiles. From those groups, we came up with these action items to address first year turnover. These were the things that were a common theme within these focus groups from the employees themselves. So they include giving clear expectations of the position that they're applying for, improving the CDL process of obtaining that license, and then training and providing resources for leaders for better career development and growth opportunities, and then improving the onboarding and orientation process, and then of course addressing pay opportunities. And then here are some of the impacts that we've had with our reward and pay practices. So year to date, 244 employees have been impacted by pay adjustments, pay equity, and classification studies. And it has had a budget impact of $1,051,000. And then some of the adjustments we've done are the solid waste collection operators. That's been a big focus. Same thing in recruitment. That's also been a focus. Our equipment operators, crew leads, fleet part specialists, and fleet technicians have received either equities or pay grade increases. And these do all fall within our high turnover job profiles. So that has been a big win for us. And then other things that we've done is, offering competitive benefits packages. We do have a recognition program where if the employees collectively reach incentive goals, they do get paid time off. And then we also offer recruitment, relocation assistance, recruitment bonuses, and relocation assistance. And then one thing that has been really big for us is we had a retention bonus initiative that we did for our high turnover job profiles. We had 114 employees that we retained during a 13-month period from 17 different high turnover job profiles. That retention period was from August 1st, 2022 to August 31st, 2023 of this year. And year to date, we still have retained those 114 employees. And Gabrielle, I'll hand over to you.
I was talking to myself. Okay, so yeah, some of the drivers of retention, main drivers, are still career and growth and development, compensation, well-being. And so we're going to show you all the strategies that we're driving. Speaking of barriers too, about 3 years ago, there was a lot of equivalency language added to our job classification. It used to be like, if you didn't have a degree, you would have to make up double the time, and now it's 1-to-1. So Will mentioned, or Zach mentioned, some barriers, and I want to throw that out too. We have rules, but within our rules, we can get very creative, and they allow us for interim pay practices, for removing barriers such as that. And strategically, we're constantly thinking about what else can we do. And so we're going to dive into a couple of things that have already happened and that have been successful. OHR Learning and Development, of course, offers a vast selection of online learnings in Workday and newly acquired also Percipio, which has a lot of very basic and foundational skills, which we need a lot, like very simple computer skills sometimes. But we need those desperately because a lot of employees are still telling us they need foundational skills. So that was a great purchase into Workday. L&D also offers a robust leadership series from aspiring leaders, those who are contemplating a supervisor position, supervisor series, manager series, and director series. We as a service team then offer customized team development, workshops, sessions, micro-learning, very tailored to what the client tells us that they need. We always do a very thorough intake and understand what the need is, and then we match that with either a customized engagement or something, a learning asset that exists. This year, we held 2 DOTI career days where mostly frontline employees, 55 of them participated. We helped them write a resume that is powerful, and we help them with conducting actual mock interviews where recruiters and HR service team partnered with DOTI leaders to conduct those interviews. And that had great resonance. Alongside of Career Day, everyone here from our team today and everyone in our team that's not here today offers career coaching. And I did a rough estimate that we've probably coached about 50 people also one-on-one just year to date. We also have done some career pathing, showing new hires in in one particular area where we know that they usually stay 1 or 2 years because it's an entry-level position. We have said, okay, if we have them 2 years, so let's make it the best 2 years possible. And let's talk about how we can show you the way of maybe building a career in the city, so maybe we can retain you in the city. Currently, we're running a development assessment for all of DOTI's divisions. So we are engaging with all DOTI divisions, have engaged with them. We're almost done, either via survey or in person, every supervisor and up, asking them what actual leadership skill needs they have in their day-to-day leadership now in the upcoming years, and what skill gaps do they see in the employee base. That data is now being prepared to be matched with resources that we can then go back to all the directors of all the divisions in DOTI and say, hey, these are the needs, here are your resources. And we will also, as a team, again, customize a lot of engagements there to help and scaffold. DOTI invested heavily in a leadership program in the last 2 years, was called Outward Mindset, and also had great resonance and a lot of success. Next slide, please. So culture and well-being, also one of the main drivers. And I believe there was a question earlier on in the notes around, do we do surveys? And yes, so culture measurement number 1, the city does every 2 years Denver Employee Engagement Survey. And that data, we are, every division, every department and agency in the city participates, they all get their data, and every division in DOTI has their own set of specific results from that engagement survey, and based on that, build their own action items. A lot of DOTI divisions also, in addition, do anonymous pulse surveys where they gauge how far they have succeeded with their action items from that engagement survey. That's every 2 years. In 2021, caveat, we did not do the DES, the regular Denver Employee Survey. We partnered with Berkeley University for a more well-being driven study and survey because of the COVID drivers. DOTI intensified safety efforts over the last years, really critical, directly related to well-being, of course. Then this year, our benefits department offered site visits for health screening. And the success there is really that employees participated, 279 employees from DOTI participated for the first time, and 134 employees got an incentive that is tied to that health screening. You can actually earn $600 if you are in a high deductible plan. You can earn $600 towards your HSA, so you get $600 as an incentive in the beginning of the year, or you get a reduction of premium in your health insurance if you don't have an HDP. So that was, apart from the incentive, the success here is also that people participated to a great extent and really had that preventive care opportunity. That is almost more a success than the incentive itself. Then the city, of course, has an employee assistance program, and that program also offers physical, mental, and financial well-being efforts. We also have a financial coach available. And lastly, we have the Care Bank now. It launched in January 2023, and that is paid leave up to 8 weeks. And that is a huge life work balance item here. Next slide, and I'll wrap up really fast. I think we're almost at time. So challenges remain. We have a significant retirement eligibility and a limited talent pool to match that. And leaders, of course, have encountered barriers quite a bit as well, such as resources, money, time. Time is one of the big ones because we can't bring a trash collection specialist off the truck when they're running their routes, right? So time for development, time for training, all that needs to be scheduled and resourced. Of course, the labor market is a stretch still, and the total rewards, we talked about compensation a lot, is a stretch, especially in the front line, and especially where compensation does not reach the level of expenses here in Denver and the cost of living, of course. There has been change, of course, in leadership and mayoral transition, so that's always a risk for any agencies and departments of things falling through change efforts. And then turnover, we have seen that does remain a challenge. Refilling positions is a challenge, of course, also now due to the hiring slowdown. And employees are definitely feeling strapped for resources. We hear that in the development assessment and also in our retention focus groups, we hear that a lot. So with that, I'm going to stop here and open up. Thank you.
Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just I had one question. In the city council budget hearings, Director Phipps mentioned that right-of-way enforcement is something that's been understaffed for a while since he's been in the role. I was wondering, so one comment, one question. So one is, I'm one of the few people I actually love right-of-way enforcement, keeping our sidewalks, bike lanes, places accessible. And I think it's I don't know if it's revenue neutral, revenue positive, but certainly brings in income for the city, and now going towards the special revenue fund for safety improvements, pedestrian sidewalks, et cetera. So the question is, do you guys have any plans, like those amazing plans you showed us for some of the other groups to help with that shortage?
Yeah, so ROE is actually the ROE agents are the group that I talked about, the career pathing, and the 1 to 2 years will have you while we here. Let's make it the best 2 years that we can and help you maybe move into a career in the city and retain you that way, right? Excite you from the start. And there has been some pay raises, and I think we're going to look at that again as well.
Yeah. Quarter one, we're going to be addressing ROE agent pay and looking at both pay grades and pay rates for those doing that job.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Thank you so much.
Actually, also had a question about row staffing. I was hoping we'd maybe see some vacancy and kind of get a better understanding of how staffed that department or division is. Do you have those numbers offhand, or roughly like what is our gap in row?
Yeah, we can get it for you. I can pull it up here. I think we're hovering around 80% staffing in that area. So below the DOTI average, it is one of our lower staffed groups High turnover, hard to fill, so lots of issues there. But yeah, I think their lowest point was like 77%. And they're above or just right around or above 80% right now. But let me get that exact number.
Hey,
Okay.
Jack, I have that. If you're looking at the entire ROE agency or division, it's about 13% vacancy rate there. If you I can break it down by
The agent maybe higher.
position.
Yeah, that might include row S too, Zach. So we want to just look at row E without the.
No, that's just row E.
Okay, got it. And they've made progress this year. I mean, they were struggling. They had a lot of vacancies earlier in the year, and they've really made progress. Had some big training classes and worked to improve the culture to keep people.
Yeah, and there's a question in the chat I would like to answer. Why is it row E that stays 1 to 2 years? It's an entry-level position by classification for sure. We have some long-termers that just love walking or driving around the city, but issuing tickets is one of the most hardest pieces of work, right? It's a really hard job, and we've had a couple of citizen escalations too, almost every year now, where ROE agents got attacked, followed. I don't want to even mention the details on that. So there's that. And then culturally, there had to be some changes in ROE. And as Jaxa said, some cultural changes have been addressed and made. And so we're hoping that we can retain them eventually longer. But it's been a pattern because of those two. Does it answer the question from the chat?
I think so. Jonathan's on the run, so
okay, yeah.
Feel free to.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sweet. Joe.
Yes, I had a question. One is, has the 45, I guess that you'd classify me as an engineer. I take that as a setback because I'm an architect, but is the 45-day, to me, that sounds absurd. That takes that long to hire somebody. And if they're looking, they would have several offers in the meantime. Understand if you're willing to leave a company, could probably stay there and wait. But have you looked at that as a factor that it takes that long to hire somebody? I mean, we here can hire people obviously in a day if we need to. So I see that as one thing that might be needed to look at a little bit better. I understand you have all these rules and regulations, but that's part of the problem of working for the city.
Hey, Joe, that's a average of 45 days from the day we post the job to the day that it is filled. So it doesn't mean that we can't go through the process and make a hire. That includes background check time, onboarding time. And yes, there are some barriers to getting here quickly, but that is a citywide average. And yeah.
Okay, just speed it up. I did have a couple other questions. You're looking, and I understand you're the hiring committee, so you're looking at compensation is the main thing you can do. But this is maybe more to Nick. Part of it, I think, is productivity. And in some ways, and again, I do a lot of work for the city. So some ways it is the constant churn of paperwork and all that. And this is maybe more Nick. Now we understand there's the masterworks coming in. So if we, as the private sector working for the city, have to spend a lot of time on that, I know that your people have to spend a lot of time administering all these new forms. And so does that come into play that, we regard it as not very productive time? I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Nick, you're on mute.
Try it again. Thanks, Jack. I don't know how many form aficionados we have at the city. I think to an extent it is part of doing business and part of doing business at the city. But those are the kind of things that, whether it's through new software, new forms, these are kind of the innovations that we really charge our staff and our management teams to try to streamline to the greatest extent possible. Because you're right, that's not the best use of employees' time, and it's not what people dream when they dream of coming to work for the city on there. And so, yeah, I think that is kind of another one of those ongoing things that we're always trying to streamline, always trying to make the role as relevant as possible while still, certainly functioning within a city structure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Just reading this one out loud because I know that our attendees can't see the chat. So it looks like for the right-of-way enforcement agents at all levels, it's actually a 34% vacancy rate. Okay. Cool. Well, not cool actually, but
yeah, they have managers and administrators and other folks that are a little more stable there. So when I quote the whole row E, it's better than that. But yeah, if you look at the agent position in particular, yeah, we got work to do.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Jack, I think you said there's an work on an increase in pay for that position.
Yeah, we're going to address that in Q1, looking at both pay grades and pay rates for the row E agent position.
Okay, awesome. If you can't tell, we get a lot of public comment and or have issues related to right of way. So there's particular interest from this group in that topic. Joe, you have another question?
Actually, I raised my hand one more time because I forgot. So, I mean, I would imagine how does Denver fare with the metropolitan area in the way of wages and stuff? Do you also study that to see where the best place to go? I'm sure you do. How do we compare?
Yeah, good question. We look at wages relative to the public sector here locally and in similar sized cities with similar cost of living nationwide. We also look at the private sector because we know we're competing with the private sector for talent. So we look at every job every year and map it to what the private sector is paying using pay surveys and other tools to really understand where are we behind market and where do we need to make adjustments. We do think we're competitive. And in line, I mentioned we're always reacting. So there's times when we find that we're, 10 to 12% behind market and need to make some adjustments. But we do look at it every year so that it doesn't get, too bad over time. So yeah, we look at both the private and public sector. And then we use, when folks are leaving, we try to pay attention to where they're going and what's driving that and how the comp is different and use some of that anecdotal stuff to really drive what we're doing in terms of pay setting and pay increases as well.
I guess we're right at time, so I'll try not to be too long here, but I think this board this is a place where we should probably be doing more active work than we have historically. From this group, what do you think that we can do as a board to better support the department as far as staffing goes? Is that, reposting kind of ideas? Is it advocating for team members of DOTI in different ways than we have? What do you view that we can do as a board to really put the work into solving some of these problems?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing is to keep spreading the good word of DOTI in the community, right? Help people understand where we have job opportunities. The TAT mentioned a rebrand. So we have this brand new jobs webpage with the hashtag see yourself here. I'll put that in the chat so you guys can kind of see that. We're constantly advertising open positions, and we'd love, anyone in the community, especially diverse folks with great talent, folks with passion for public service to apply. And the more we can get your help in spreading the word about the important work we do here, what we think is a really strong culture where we invest in our people, develop them, pay them appropriately, right? Support them, just helping people understand where those opportunities are and encouraging them to apply. That's one big thing that I can think of. Nick, I don't know if there's anything else on your end, but that's the big one I can think of right now.
No, I mean, yeah, I think that is, if there are areas where you think there is, and I think Tinsley kind of touched on it, yeah, where you think there is a desire. These are good jobs, and I'm not just saying that because, I've chosen this. These are good, solid jobs with benefits, which is getting less and less common out there with a pension, and talk about uncommon there. And really just, again, biased, but if you are service oriented, I can't think of a much better job than working for the city and really helping deliver those city services on there. And so, yeah, wherever you think there's community groups, there's areas that people aren't familiar with the work we do and the opportunities that we provide, send them our way. I think that definitely helps. We need to go to where the potential employees are.
Thanks, Nick. Tinsley, can you go really quickly? We're about 4 minutes over time.
Very, very quick. And it has to do with some of the outreach portions, actually to your question. So I just want to hurry up and answer. Yeah. I think that we should continue to also as a board have conversations about how to get some of these DOTI projects informed to the community digitally. I'd love to have some more conversations surrounding like a better streamlined approach to getting some of these projects out to the community, so that they know about them, as well as upcoming projects, future projects, any DOTI issues that, you know, whatever, staffing, all of that. So maybe we can talk some more about how digitally, because that kind of makes sense for everybody in these busy times, busy careers and all of that. So I hope we can have continued conversations. That's it.
All right, thanks, Hensley. Sorry, we've got two incredibly important topics today, so we do have to wrap on the staffing conversation. Though I would, as a point of privilege, say if you see a right-of-way enforcement agent in the next month or so, tell them you appreciate them. As our team here mentioned, it's a tough job. With that, we do need to shift over into our budget section. I believe, Alan, you're actually opening us up here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate that. I think we've encouraged the entire group. So just again, thank you to everybody that came to speak from the staffing side of things. As Jake said, a super important conversation, the people in DOTI as well. So thanks again for that. Switching over to the budget. As background, we've encouraged the entire group to view the city council budget presentations, to look through the PowerPoints. And we really wanted to use this time of this group to ask specific questions around the budget. I know a few of you guys have a list. I know Jonathan submitted a list that Jake and I can go through as well. But we wanted to kind of go through things and as opposed to a presentation, you know, the department has already done so much. We want to go through and see what questions this group has for the department, since we've already, you know, looked through the very exciting city council budget presentation and such. It looks like Tinsley, I know you've got a question, so go ahead.
Sorry, I don't. It didn't disassemble my hand. I apologize. Let me try that again.
No worries at all.
Okay, there we go. I got it. Thank you.
Great. Well, Nick, one question. Well, while folks are thinking through things here, one question for you and Earl, perhaps, or the team, I should say, is around. I know we had some questions around the Spear Tunnel and how that made it into that particular line item of the special revenue fund.
Yes, and I was able to talk to a few folks here this week and get kind of the scoop on that. So ultimately what it was, we're funding a portion of that. The special revenue fund, for folks who aren't familiar with it, is a fund that was created and funded through incremental increases to the parking meters. So if you'll remember, for a long time, we paid $1, and then now we pay $2 on there, and a good portion of that incremental increase goes towards our special revenue fund, which we use for primarily multimodal projects, but ultimately safety is another important part of that. And so what this project is improving the safety of this tunnel. So this is the Spear Tunnel that goes under Broadway on there, and that really, the safety aspect of that, you know, transit of course uses that. I forget which line runs through there, but this is definitely a needed safety improvement for there, and that's where it fell into the special revenue fund to form a portion of that project.
Great, thanks for going through that, Nick. Any questions on that?
I guess I don't have a question as much, more a comment. I think that when that special revenue fund was created, it was kind of communicated to us that it would be a resource for pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users. I know that there is a bus line that uses the Spear Tunnel, but it does feel like that's not a major transit corridor and or like a resource for transit. So I think I'm just struggling a little bit in that I think we were very optimistic around some of the mobility enhancements that might have come out of that fund. And just in kind of the first year we're really seeing it put to use. It's in I think what's fair to say is a predominantly single mode share of single occupancy or multi-occupant vehicles. So I think that I'm struggling with the appropriation a little bit. I'm not questioning the project at all. It looks like it's really, really important. Bridges and tunnels are about one of the most important things that DOTI touches. But the appropriation seems strange, if not outside of expectation, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think, Jake, I think that's a fair point. I think we articulate that pretty well in the letter. And, you know, as we've talked about before, ultimately, this is the mayor's budget of kind of where things are allocated. So I definitely appreciate that. And I agree. I think we should include that in the letter.
Thank you, Alan.
And I see Eileen agreed with that comment as well. Jamie Lewis mentioned in chat that it's the 83L line that runs under Spear.
Thank you.
For anyone that gets to take that. Yep. Jake, would you like to pull up the list of some of the questions that we had from Jonathan?
Yeah. Sorry, and I don't think, Anita, do I have access to share my screen?
Tinsley, perhaps go ahead if you got a question. I'm not
Yes,
sure if
I
that.
do.
Great, fire away while Jake's looking at that.
Yes, I was gonna say, I at least have my question memorized. And I think this is for everyone. You know, when I was watching the council presentation, sorry, my kids are. When I was watching the council presentation, one thing that was concerning to me, and I think many of you heard the same, that we're kind of still in the dark about what projects are going to have to be kind of to the wayside given the budget this year. I know that every department has taken somewhat of a cut in some way, and I'm just curious, like, from each kind of district, what is kind of not going to get done in the docket, like as a runner-up, I guess you could say. Am I making sense there?
I think so. It's a really tough question to answer because, you know, kind of one thing is, you know, and I think you probably heard it a little bit. One thing we can't talk about is what was submitted but was not approved into the final budget, and ultimately that is deliberative information on there. As was said in the beginning, this is the mayor's budget on there, and so kind of the deliberation we have with him, that is not public information on there. You know, I think kind of what it comes down to is we're never able to, whether it's a great year or a tough year, to build out the, you know, if we think of our roadmap, our Denver Moves Everyone 2050 on there, we will never, well, that's not fair. So I think it's hard to say what is not getting funded on it. I think our expectation is we still have our roadmap on Denver Moves Everyone on there and still plan to implement that over the next period of time on there. And so that's a real evasive answer. I didn't mean for it to sound like that.
No, that's okay. I think my main concern is just what, again, I kind of touched on it in the beginning about the underserved populations with the projects. And I think that's my concern, that I guess with what we have, how is DOTI going to allocate more of those funds to those communities? Because I know, you know, everybody needs something from DOTI. So, you know, just what is your plan, I guess, to kind of, you know, continue on with those projects or make those areas a priority? Like, what is going to be a priority, I guess, is the next question.
And I guess that's where I'd rely again on Denver Moves Everyone. Really, that effort was to map out what is our plan from now until 2050. And so that is probably, you know, the best high level answer I can give right now on there. And, you know, and that does delve into kind of equitable investment on there, going back to what I talked about during the initial kind of executive update on there. And so I'd say that is, when we talk about plan, that is our lowercase p plan, and that is certainly our capital P plan on there. And maybe that's a direction we can go to kind of drill down into that investment strategy.
I would like to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Earl, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I think to add to that, it's important to note that many of the projects and initiatives that have started based on this year's budget actions, typically it's unlikely that they're going to be sort of halted in a degree. It's about really managing the expectations within the current budget reality that we have and that we're dealing with. And, many of these things, especially to the point that Nick had made, there are projects that directly start in a district, and there are projects that benefit a district based on sort of where it particularly starts. And there's projects that benefit multiple districts, right? And so I think being able to really sort of distinguish between those and making sure that, we are communicating the right message around that is important. And so, yeah.
One question I have, Freps, for you, Earl and Nick, is, is there any currently document out there? I think I've seen you guys have an equity map in the past of showing where projects are going. Is there a list of projects that might be happening across the districts and things like that we might be able to share with this group?
Yeah,
So
we kind of hit. Earl, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you actually go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, we did hit it a little bit on one of the slides during the budget presentation that really starts to map out within those equity areas. And I think it's been a little while since we had kind of the equity mapping tool presentation on here, but that's certainly something we could provide this group.
Thanks, Nick. Great. Jake, I see you've got the list of questions. You want to start to go through those?
Yeah, I just added them in chat in lieu of some difficulty screen sharing. But for those that are attendees, so that you have them, are questions. I'll read them all right now, and then we can bounce back to the top. But what DOTI projects in each community are not being completed due to the current budget? What percentage of this budget will be dedicated strictly for outreach support services or programs, both for staffing and for projects? And then what consulting opportunities exist in case we know people that can help? So starting at the top, sorry.
So on that very topic, when you say what projects are not being completed, that's kind of like an open-ended sort of statement in the sense that, are you referencing projects that were started and won't be completed, or referencing projects that are just simply not started, or
started or promised within the next year? Because we've had, especially in Green Valley Ranch, we've had a lot of projects that are like, yes, we're going to do them. Yes, they're approved. Yes, let's go. And then we're waiting for 2 years.
So now, as a follow-up to that very question, started as a result of the budget, or started or not started as a result of other economic factors that may have delayed the start of the
I think that I would like to know both, actually. Both would be great. I know this is probably a conversation for later too, but definitely I would like to know both.
Okay. Nick, any commentary on that?
No, I think I tried to kind of touch on that in one of my earlier answers on there. I think there is some specific project lists, both in our equity area. I know at one point, Tinsley, it may have been you as well, the GES area. It was either GES or GVR. GVR, thank you. One of our G acronyms on there. On that, we can pull that. We are in the process of pulling that. I don't have it right now on there, but that's certainly something we can provide if we want to start to have a broader conversation about specific either neighborhood investment or that equity area investment.
Great, that's great. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Earl. Earl, do you want to talk about the next question? What percentage of budget will be dedicated for outreach support programs for staffing and projects, or do you have a rough feeling for that?
Yeah, so that's kind of a hard thing to determine because a lot of those efforts are budgeted within individual projects. And so the cumbersomeness that would be required to go through every single project that we have ongoing or that has something happening in relation to those efforts, it'd be very difficult. And so I think that that's one of those things that, because make every effort to budget those things into every project that is actually needed. And so it's not something that's sort of segregated out of outside of project budgets and then sort of managed separately. And so it's kind of in the same way that maybe within a project, there's design work within each project that's sort of that's included within that. It'd be difficult to just sort of segregate out all the design costs associated with every single project that is currently taking place.
Great, that's
And I'll add,
helpful.
so, sorry, Alan.
No, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I know there's a question regarding our Office of Community and Business Engagement. I think that's another group this team has heard from previously. That is their main goal, really. What they are kind of are really who, you know, setting up the community relationships, really trying to develop those so we have a good flow of information back and forth. You have some information that specifically. But then kind of to Earl's point, the issue is think of it as a percentage in each project has public outreach. And typically our Office of Community Business Engagement is engaged, of course they are, in that, on that, and really trying to maximize that. But that team is not large enough to do dedicated outreach for every single project out there. And so typically what's going to happen is we'll solicit an outreach consultant on there. OCBE stays involved with them, making sure that kind of the brand and the methods are consistent across that. But that's really kind of the challenge is incremental on pretty much every project there. To sort of parse that out would be challenging, but really it's we look to OCBE, Community Business Engagement, to really lead that and drive that engagement.
Great, thanks. And I saw that, Nick, you put in that link there to upcoming consulting opportunities for folks to engage in. So I'll put that in our notes as well. And we had a question from Jamie about the migrant influx and unfunded mandate, where the city has compassion. So I don't expect a new administration to overpromise anything in this budget. So more of a comment there. And I think that was it. Are there other questions? Jake, did I miss anything on Jonathan's list?
Yeah, there's a couple from Jonathan himself that I couldn't copy in because there's also some images of screenshots of the budget in. But speaking of the Office of Business and Community Engagement, Jonathan had a question. It looks like the headcount for that department will be going from I think it's a 2022 actual of 11, a 2023 appropriated of 9 to a 2024 recommendation of 7, so a decrease of 2 year over year. Is this the department shrinking, or is this an accounting move where they're staffing in other places?
Yeah, boy, I'd have egg on my face if I just lauded their work and then no. So this is accounting. That group is one of our more unique groups that receives a fair amount of grant funding on there. So without going into specifics, no, that group has not shrunk as a result of this budget. I don't think there are any personnel reductions in this budget on there, but certainly OCBE is not shrinking. Yeah, so that would be, I'll defer to the financial professionals to describe what, but no, that group is not shrinking.
Yeah, there's been no department reductions in headcount from 23 to 24. And not only has there not been any, but there's not even been a discussion in regards to that.
I'll just chime in a little bit there. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Spanberger. I'm the director of accounting for DOTI. And so what you're showing in the budget book here, like Nick said, some of these positions are grant funded, and the timing of those grants don't necessarily align with the way we do our budget. So actually in OCB, I think next year with our new grant, we're actually going to see an increase in headcount by 1 FTE, but we had to cut it off for the budget book. And so it's just a timing issue there. No reduction in headcount.
Okay, Chris, we know you're on the call. We got you covered.
Yeah, an egg on my face.
It's all on camera.
Cool. And then Jonathan was also wondering, there seems to be similar loss of funds and or personnel for transportation implementation, transportation planning, program management, special projects, and admin. Is this the same situation? This is
actually really due to a staff capitalization move. So what we're going to do in 2024 is we're taking about $5 million on out of this budget from personnel perspective and moving it over to a capital budget perspective. So there's no reduction in like an FTE count. You can see in the screenshot that the gentleman provided, the FTE count pretty much stays the same year over year. This is just a sort of an accounting move where we're taking personnel costs and shifting them over to a capital fund. So there's no real sort of net reduction in these expenditures.
Now, I will just to add to what Peter said, and thank you, Peter. And if you're wondering, Peter used my link. That's why his name's Nicholas today on there. But DOTI did not. So we did not. We're one of the not a lot of departments had budget increases. DOTI was one of those departments where I think a little over $4 million was expanded. Our budget expanded a little over that. And so, yeah, and then to confirm, I think what Earl just said, no headcount reductions. Anything you see in there would be just kind of to what Peter and Earl have talked about, just some accounting things.
I'm going to apologize. I'm reading off of a pre-written list, so if this feels repetitive, that's why. The next question I had was, there's a few places where vacancy savings is listed for 2024. What does this mean? For example, we have open positions and we don't expect that they'll be filled, or they won't be filled immediately in January. So this is a savings for a part-year role or something else.
Yeah, what BMO, so the Department of Finance and the Budget Management Office has a way of calculating vacancy savings, and it's actually on page 61 of the overall budget book if you want to read more about it. But essentially what they do is they take for a large department like DOTI, they take 3.75% of the budgeted staff and just set that aside as vacancy savings. And that's just based on turnover, and time to fill positions, stuff like that. So typically we'll actually have vacancy savings in a little bit excess of that amount, but that's the amount that you see in the budget book. That little vacancy savings line item is based on that percentage from the Budget Management Office.
Thank you. And then I have one more. This one's from Jonathan. Jonathan, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to capture the essence of this, so if you need to chime in, but which section of the budget does right-of-way enforcement fall under? I see right-of-way services, but the org chart suggests that is a different department focused on plan reviews, permitting, and development, and their revenues match that expectation, all from fees as opposed to fines and forfeits.
So in the budget book, it falls under the Transportation Operations Group, which is that number 508-1000. So it's on pages 690 and 691 is where row E falls.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then that's it for my pre-written questions that I had from our board. Tinsley, do you have a question?
Yeah, just one more. And this is kind of a hot topic, so I'm gonna make it quick. So for financing the trash collection, have you guys found a resolution for the RTD trash collection maintenance that has been lacking for the past few months? I know that you guys were having troubles with the contractor there and trying to figure out if there was like financial increases that needed to happen in order to accommodate more bus stops and more trash cans, etc. Have you guys kind of figured that out yet?
So, okay, I think I'm tracking on this. We're talking about the Transit Amenities Program, which is
That's correct.
The permit program that funds the vast majority of the bus stop shelters on there. So yeah, that is something we're continuing to look at for the education of the group. So in exchange for the ability to advertise in the street, a contractor, typically an outdoor advertiser, will set up a shelter with their advertising on there, and then they maintain a responsibility for maintaining that. So trash removal is a big one, and there's been a few in the in the news lately that have not met that standard, certainly the standard of the permit. We still, of course, maintain the ability to require that contractor to go out and clean that. But Tinsley, I think you're right. I think there's opportunity there to certainly do better on there, and that is something both our right-of-way services team and our transit team is looking at on there. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, and we are still short for time a little bit. Alan, does it make sense to switch over to the letter now?
Yeah, I think that's great, Jake. Well, and again, thank you, Peter, Nicholas, and Earl for filling us in on all those details. I know you guys have hundreds of pages of the budget, so appreciate you being able to take those questions on the fly. Nanita, would you mind turning on sharing, screen sharing for me when you get a second while I go through this real quick? So as the board has seen, we've got a draft letter. Background for folks not on the board. We started this letter in our budget finance committee last month and submitted it to the entire group for comments and recommendations, and it's evolved significantly over the last few weeks to the point where we are today. Today, we just wanted to go through a couple of outstanding items on this. We asked for comments for last week for any major additions, so we're not going to go through and wordsmith the whole thing today, but simply want to go through and see if there's any major changes based on details that we've learned from DOTI staff today that we'd like to consider to be added to here. And then before 6 o'clock, we need to vote on this so we can send it to the mayor and city council as well. I will go ahead and share that letter on my screen now. Hopefully. Yep, there we go. Thanks, Anita. And I'll zoom back here a little bit better view here. Can everyone see this okay?
Looks great, Alan.
Great. So one quick question that we had on here. Gary, I just wanted to get a little context. You listed here removing this line on the we are only funding about 20% of 2024 budgets required to complete Denver Moves 2050 plan. Just want to give a little more context for that deletion.
Yeah, and I'm happy to address that. Plus the next one.
Yeah, great. That'd be great.
Alan, it's basically it's a technical issue about stating numbers that don't have backup. In other words, each one of those items that I suggested being crossed out needed some sort of citation. In other words, where did you get the 20%? It's hard to present this to council and or the mayor and say we're 20% underfunded, or we're only funded about 20%, when there's a 770 book page that says or presents an argument that okay, we're maybe a little short, but it doesn't look like 20%. That's all I was saying, is that we got to make sure of our numbers. And the second comment was basically the same. I don't think we want to start an argument or present data that we don't have a significant basis for. And granted, I understand our sister cities may have larger budgets, and it's a great argument to put forward. And I don't want to miss the overall message that we're woefully underfunded to accomplish the program goals that have been put forward. I can't let that go. I mean, that has to be in there somewhere, but to cite those specifics, Alan, I think you need some sort of citation or reference. And yeah, that's kind of the...
Yeah, that's great feedback. Thank you so much for that, Gary. I appreciate it, especially coming from the engineering perspective. So thanks for that. I'm happy to strike those. And Eileen, I know you just put in a comment here. I don't know if you're still on the line here, but I can't see more than a few people on my screen. But would you like to expand upon this or give me a specific verbiage to add into here for this redirect funds earmarked for the Spear Tunnel and system to safe routes to schools, Vision Zero, and bike repaving?
Yeah, I don't feel super strongly about this. I was trying to think about how we might be able to edit that bolded statement so that the point is really hit home. And I think it's a really good one that through Jake's questioning, that Spear Tunnel system is being funded with funds that are supposed to be benefiting more multi-modes, and really it's only benefiting primarily automobiles. So maybe we, instead of like calling out a very specific project, of course we all love these three, but our point is really that, is this the best use of funds? And by the way, here are a few suggestions that if you believe our point and you agree with it, that we'd love to see that funding go towards. So, I mean, I'm not going to die on my hill on this one. So
how's
if
that
we don't
additional
want to do it,
sentence?
it's
Does that help?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Love it. Perfect. I will check that off then. Thanks, Eileen. And I can see I've got another comment in here. Oh, I just forgot to close out Gary's, I think, here. Yep. Great. Were there any other comments on this letter based on information that we've learned today? No? Great. So Jake, if you're okay with it, I think we can go ahead and take a vote on delivering this letter to the mayor and city council. If someone wants to move for a vote on it.
I'll move for a vote on it.
Yeah.
Great. I heard a move in a kind of a second same time there, so I'll go with that. So all those in favor of submitting the letter, oh, Eileen, go ahead. Oh, you're raising your hand, I think, in anticipation of the vote. So all those in favor of approving this and sending it to city council, please raise your hand. We're affirming saying aye. Great. That's a pretty big majority there, so I think we'll be okay. Go ahead and lower your hands at this point in time. All those opposed to the letter, please raise your hand or say nay. Great. It sounds like unanimous. So I will work on getting this into a PDF, and I'll send it over to Jake and Jonathan, and we can send it to the mayor and city council. Thank you guys for, I just want to say thank you to Joe Levy and everyone else that's been on the budget committee here for the last really few years and going through this process. I know it's a lot, but thank you guys for this, and thank you Earl and Nick and Anita for helping to answer all the questions that we've had here over the last few months.
Alan, will you just shoot us an email so that, like, as I feel like when it goes out, I should ping my appointing city councilman and say, hey, this came from us and this is important, or just
Absolutely.
if we could all do that, that would be helpful because they get so much around the budget.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely copy. I'll send you the draft immediately, and we'll try to copy you guys when this goes out formally as well. So please feel welcome. I encourage anyone to forward it to your city council representatives, or if you know anyone in the mayoral administration, if you're mayoral appointee as well. Great idea, Julie. Thank you so much. Jake, I think that's it.
Awesome. Okay. We did have a couple other line items. We have 8 minutes remaining, and I think we can do it all. The first thing up, the action items list. We do have, sorry, my computer is loading the page. Just to review the action items list from our last meeting. All right, so on our last meeting's action items list, there was a conversation about Pena Boulevard that was going to occur in the policy committee. I'm hoping we can get a brief update on that from either Jamie or Gary. And then we also had the budget policy committee met in between now and then. Obviously, you can see one of the major outputs of that is that letter that Alan shared. And then Alan asked if the DOTI staff could post the video of the DOTI board meetings in Spanish, which the department said they could. So those are our last meeting's line items. Anything that anyone wants to add immediately to the action items list for this month? I'll add one key thing is we from our team on the talent acquisition at DOTI, we did get some links and resources and an ask to share about the department, good news and potentially open positions, as well as my personal ask of a bank right-of-way enforcer. So I'll add that to the action items list. Anything from the rest of the team?
Jake, this is Jamie from the policy committee. Just briefly, our next meeting is on the 18th from 10 to 11. Gary will be filling in for me. I will be out of town, but the two subject matters will be no turn on red and also editing the Pena Boulevard letter request. And we're hoping to get that on the full agenda for November.
Anything, Jamie, you want to add in addition about the policy committee's last month's Pena Boulevard discussion?
We decided that we think that there's alternatives. Either if they implement it, there's some multimodal things that could be done, or to actually use that money for another purpose. So the crux of the letter will be that 27% of the cost will have to come from the city, and it's something the mayor seriously needs to consider. So I'll just leave it at that. And if you guys want to discuss it more, come to the 18th meeting.
All right. That's quite the cliffhanger, Jamie. So I bet it'll be its highest attendance ever for that meeting. All right. That is our action items list, and as well as an update from the policy committee. Any other odds and ends that anyone needs to discuss that did not make the agenda? All right, well, after all that rushing for time, we got 5 minutes back. So way to go, everyone. All right, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in November.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Guys, do we need anything?